Have you ever stopped to ask yourself, why does life feel like it's always on the edge of falling apart? Not just the world, your routines, your relationships, your mind. You keep going day after day, but there's this background noise, a quiet chaos. You can't always name it, but you feel it. What if I told you that most people aren't living their lives? They're just surviving them, reacting, repeating, hiding behind habits that no longer serve them and stories that were never really theirs. But here's the truth. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your structure, your mindset, your discipline, your principles. And that's where this video begins. Because Jordan Peterson didn't write 12 rules for life to make you comfortable. He wrote it to shake the foundation of everything you've been avoiding. He doesn't offer shallow motivation. He offers order in the middle of your chaos. These 12 rules aren't just advice. They're hard truths. They're frameworks for growth. They're challenges to who you think you are and a blueprint for who you could become. So if something in you is tired of drifting, tired of overthinking, avoiding, procrastinating, if you're ready to stop blaming the world and start fixing what's in front of you and inside you, this video is where that shift begins. Because rule by rule, you're going to learn what no shortcut ever taught you. That meaning is earned. That truth is a responsibility. And that the life you want doesn't come from comfort. It comes from order. If you're ready for that, stay with me. This video could be the start of a conversation you've needed for a long time. And if it speaks to you, even a little, subscribe. Because what we're building here isn't just about this book. It's about reclaiming strength, clarity, and direction, one rule at a time. Let's begin. Rule 1. Stand up straight with your shoulders back. There's a quiet war happening every day in schools, at jobs, on sidewalks, inside homes, and deep within minds. It's not fought with weapons. It's not televised. It happens in posture. A bowed head, hunched shoulders, averted eyes, and the world, without a second thought, decides your value. In a world ruled not by fairness, but by invisible hierarchies, how you carry yourself matters more than you were ever told. Jordan Peterson begins his book 12 Rules for Life with a rule that seems almost absurd in its simplicity. Stand up straight with your shoulders back. But this isn't about looking confident. It's about being ready to engage with life, with all its chaos, cruelty, competition, and possibility. This rule is a gateway, not just to strength, but to meaning. Segment 1. The Dominance Hierarchy, Lobsters and the Code of Life. Peterson begins unexpectedly, not with humans, but with lobsters. Why lobsters? Because they've existed for over 350 million years. And in that time, something strange has remained constant. The dominance hierarchy. Lobsters fight for territory. They size each other up. And when one lobster loses a fight, it slumps, literally. Its posture shrinks. Its brain chemistry changes. Its serotonin levels drop, and it becomes more fearful, more anxious, more submissive. Sound familiar? Humans, too, are wired to respond to social defeat and victory, not just emotionally, but biochemically. When we feel defeated, our bodies express it. When we feel dominant, our posture changes accordingly. You're not just reacting to the world. You're constantly telling the world how to treat you, with every inch of your spine. Segment 2. Neurochemistry and body language. This is why posture matters. When you slump, avoid eye contact, and walk as though trying to disappear, your nervous system reads that as defeat. And worse, so does everyone around you. But when you stand tall with your shoulders back, eyes forward, something changes. Inside your body, serotonin increases, your breathing deepens, your heart rate stabilizes. And outside your body, people respond differently. They listen, they respect, they don't interrupt, because you've signaled not aggression, but competence, stability, presence. This isn't fake confidence. This is biological positioning, a signal that says, I'm here, I can handle what comes. Segment 3. The world as a hierarchical battlefield. Many people today reject the idea of hierarchies. They call them unfair, oppressive, man-made. But Peterson argues, Hierarchies aren't social constructs. They're natural. They exist in animals, in insects, in biology itself. From the workplace to the schoolyard, we are constantly navigating pecking orders. And while these structures can be cruel or corrupt, they also serve a function. They tell us who is reliable, who can be trusted, who takes responsibility, and who avoids it. Standing up straight is not just about appearances. It's about placing yourself willingly into that structure, not as a slave, but as a participant, as someone who accepts the burdens and risks of life. To stand tall is to say, I am not a victim of chaos. I am its challenger. Segment 4. The price of submission. When you allow yourself to slump, to shrink, to go unnoticed, you might avoid risk. You might avoid judgment, but you also avoid life. You lose opportunities. You lose relationships. You lose the respect of others. And eventually, yourself. Low status isn't just a social position. It becomes a psychological condition, a lens through which everything feels rigged, unfair, and hostile. Peterson warns us, if you stay too long in that space of submission, you start to believe the lie that you are not worth standing up, that you were born to be stepped over, ignored, dismissed, and the world, lacking any signal to believe otherwise, will agree with you. Segment 5. The courage to face chaos. But the act of standing up is more than posture. It's a decision to engage with the world, to take on responsibility, to risk failure, rejection, even humiliation, because life without those risks isn't life at all. When you stand tall, you are not pretending everything is fine. You are saying, even if it's not, I'm willing to face it. This is the deeper meaning of Rule 1. It's not a motivational slogan. It's a philosophy of being, a posture of defiance against the idea that you are helpless. To stand up straight with your shoulders back is to orient yourself toward what matters, to signal not just to others, but to yourself that you are prepared to carry the weight. Segment 6. Responsibility and meaning. What gives life meaning? Peterson is clear: responsibility. Not freedom, not pleasure, not safety, but the burden of carrying what must be carried. To stand tall is to volunteer for that burden. It is to say, I will carry what I can. For myself, for my family, for something greater than me. This is the path not just to power, but to purpose. And that path begins, quite literally, with how you carry yourself. Straight spine, open chest, head held high. The body leads the mind, and the world follows. Segment 7. Inner order, outer order. There's a hidden principle behind this rule. Put yourself in order before you try to fix the world. Many people feel the world is broken, and often it is. But Peterson argues, and he's right, that if you don't start by fixing yourself, you will only spread your own chaos. Standing up straight is the first act of internal order. It's not cosmetic. It's foundational. Before you demand justice, before you demand change, can you stand tall in your own life? Can you look yourself in the eye and say, I'm trying to be strong. I'm trying to be reliable. I am trying to be someone others can lean on. If not, then that is where you must begin. Segment 8. The first step of transformation. No transformation begins without a first step. And Rule 1 is exactly that. It is not glamorous. It won't go viral, but it's real. You don't need to fix your past. You don't need to change the world overnight. You only need to stand tall, not to dominate, but to participate. Not to demand, but to carry what is yours. This small change, this shift in posture, begins a chain reaction. You feel stronger. Others treat you with more respect. You gain momentum, and life slowly responds. Rule 2. Treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping. Full voiceover script, 1 hour. Opening hook. Here's a strange observation. People are more likely to give their dog its medicine than to take their own. More likely to take care of a friend than themselves. Why? Why do we so often abandon ourselves? Why do we treat our pain as less worthy, our needs as less urgent, and our lives as somehow less important? In 12 Rules for Life, Rule 2 demands a radical shift in perspective. Treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping. It's not just a suggestion, it's a revolution, because hidden in this rule is a piercing truth. You know how to take care of someone. You just don't believe you deserve it. This isn't self-love. It's self-respect, and it starts with responsibility. Segment 1. The paradox of self-neglect. Most people believe they're not selfish. They put others first. They sacrifice. They help. But scratch a little deeper, and a darker reality appears. They eat poorly, sleep irregularly, ignore health issues. They tolerate toxic environments. They procrastinate, sabotage, punish themselves. If you treated someone else the way you treat yourself, it would be abuse. Peterson asks, why? Because people often believe, deep down, that they are not worth helping, that their suffering is deserved, that their needs are unimportant. So they punish themselves by neglect, and they call it humility. But it's not. It's self-contempt disguised as virtue. Segment 2. The ancient problem of chaos. According to Peterson, this mindset is ancient. He points to the biblical idea of chaos, the formless void that existed before creation. And in many ways, each of us lives near that void. Anxiety, failure, illness, mortality. When we look at ourselves, we see all that's broken, all that's unworthy. And so we turn away. We avoid responsibility for ourselves. It feels safer to distract, to numb, to defer. But avoidance is not harmless. Neglect becomes decay, and slowly, the self you ignore begins to rot. Segment 3. You know how to help? Peterson's genius lies in his challenge. You already know what to do for others. If your friend was sick, would you tell him he's worthless? If your child failed, would you mock her? If your dog was injured, would you ignore it? No. You'd show care, patience, attention, respect. You do what's necessary, not what's easy. So why not offer the same to yourself? It's not about indulgence or comfort. It's about acting as if you matter. Because the truth is, you do. Segment 4. The moral responsibility to care for yourself. Peterson flips the common logic on its head. You have a moral responsibility to take care of yourself. Not because you're special, but because others need you. Your family needs you strong. Your community needs you sane. The world needs you competent. And if you fall into despair, addiction, resentment, you don't just suffer. You become dangerous to yourself and to others. Caring for yourself is not narcissism. It's maintenance for your soul, your body, your mind, so that you can carry the weight you must carry. Segment 5. Write the prescription. Imagine you are a doctor, and your patient is you. What would you prescribe? Would you tell yourself to stay up until 3 a.m. every night? To scroll endlessly? Ignore purpose? Binge on distractions? Would you tolerate your own lies, your own decay? Or would you offer discipline, order, structure, clarity? You know what the prescription is. The question is, will you follow it? Treating yourself like someone you're responsible for helping means holding yourself accountable. And that begins with honest observation. Segment 6. The inner tyrant versus the inner healer. Peterson identifies a dangerous figure inside many people. The inner tyrant, the voice that condemns, shames, punishes. It tells you, you don't deserve peace. You're a failure. Why bother? But this tyrant must be silenced, not through affirmation, but through action. There is also an inner healer. It speaks softly. It says, get up, try again, do what you can. Start small. Treating yourself like someone you're responsible for helping is listening to that healer. It's not a feeling. It's a decision every single day. Segment 7. Building structure and order. Helping someone requires structure. You don't just wish them better. You plan. And for yourself, that means schedules. Sleep, food, exercise, reading, boundaries, honesty, goals. Structure doesn't imprison you. It frees you from chaos, from guilt, from failure. If you are in charge of saving yourself, truly, you begin by building order. And Peterson insists that responsibility is yours. No one is coming to save you. Segment 8. Meaning over pleasure. There's a lie that says, do what feels good, but pleasure without meaning becomes addiction. Peterson's rule 2 is not about feeling good. It's about doing what is meaningful. Helping yourself might mean choosing discomfort now for stability later. It might mean saying no to things that numb you but leave you empty. It might mean choosing a disciplined life when no one is watching. Because you are watching, and the one person you cannot lie to is yourself. Segment 9. The sacred worth of the individual. At the heart of Rule 2 is a powerful message. You matter, not as an idea, not because of external success, but because life is sacred, and you are a part of it. If you believe others deserve care, kindness, effort, then you must believe it about yourself. This is not ego, it's alignment with reality. Because when you care for yourself, you do not shrink. You grow, and what grows contributes. So here is the challenge of Rule 2. Start treating yourself as if you were someone you are responsible for helping. Write the prescription. Follow the structure. Silence the tyrant. Listen to the healer. Begin with the body, then the mind, then the soul. You're not your past. You're not your pain. You are the one who can begin the healing now. And the world is waiting for the person you're capable of becoming. Rule 3. Make friends with people who want the best for you. Look around you. The people in your life, your friends, your companions, your confidants, are not neutral. They are shaping your future moment by moment. With every word, every silence, every reaction, they're either helping you rise or silently dragging you under. You already know this. You felt the difference between a friend who lifts you and one who quietly watches you sink. Jordan Peterson doesn't ask you to be nice or to be tolerant or to keep peace at the cost of your own soul. No. In Rule 3, he makes a demand. Make friends with people who want the best for you. It sounds simple, but it isn't. Because to follow this rule, you must face a painful truth. Some of the people closest to you may not want you to succeed. Segment 1. The power of association. We like to think we are strong, independent thinkers, that we make our own decisions. But research and experience tell a different story. You become like the people you spend time with, not just in habits, but in beliefs, values, goals, and even mood. Their worldview seeps into yours. Their patterns become yours. Peterson warns us, association is not harmless. It is a force, and it is shaping your identity for better or worse. Who you choose to walk with, you choose to become. Segment 2. Friendship as moral alignment. A real friend is not just someone you enjoy being around. A real friend is someone who wants you to be better, even if it makes them uncomfortable. They cheer when you grow. They speak truth when you lie to yourself. They hold you accountable when you drift. But false friends? They're different. They encourage weakness. They enable failure. They celebrate your lowest impulses because it makes them feel less alone in their own destruction. To choose the right friends, you must ask a hard question. Do they want what's best for me? Or do they want me to stay broken so they're not alone? Segment 3. The seduction of loyalty to the wrong people. Sometimes we stay in toxic friendships out of loyalty. They've been with us for years. We've suffered together. We tell ourselves we owe them something. But Peterson cuts through this illusion. He says, you do not have a moral obligation to stay loyal to those who are actively damaging your life. In fact, staying with them out of guilt is a betrayal, not just of yourself, but of your potential. You are not helping them by staying. You are enabling them and sacrificing your future in the process. Segment 4. Why some people want you small. Here's a disturbing truth. Not everyone wants to see you rise. Your success might remind them of their own failures. Your growth might make them feel small, so they mock your ambition. They downplay your achievements. They tell you you've changed, and they don't mean it as a compliment. Peterson is blunt. These people are not your friends. They want you to stay exactly where you are, stuck, uncertain, afraid, because your progress threatens the fragile world they've built. Segment 5. Friendship is not compatibility, it's aspiration. True friendship is not built on shared hobbies or convenience. It's built on shared values. Not where you are, but where you're trying to go. Peterson encourages us. Don't seek friends who tolerate your dysfunction. Seek those who demand your growth. Not harshly, but faithfully. Not to judge, but to strengthen. Find people who would be genuinely happy to see you become more competent, more disciplined, more honest. People who would challenge you, not flatter you. Who would rather see you uncomfortable and growing than complacent and dying inside. Segment 6. Helping others versus being pulled down. You might say, but shouldn't I help my broken friends? Peterson answers, yes, if they want help, if they're reaching for the light. But if they're sinking and refuse to rise, then try to sink. He offers a harsh metaphor. If someone is drowning and they won't let go of your neck, you both drown. Compassion must be paired with wisdom. Help the willing. Withdraw from those who mock the very help they need. Segment 7. Recognizing hidden contempt. Sometimes the danger isn't overt. It's hidden in jokes that cut too deep, in celebrations that always turn into sabotage, in subtle acts of jealousy, rivalry, or manipulation. Peterson urges us to notice these patterns. If someone is always there when you fall, but absent when you rise, if they celebrate your excuses, but not your courage, then what they want isn't friendship. It's dominance or shared misery. True friends feel joy when you succeed, and grief when you fail, not relief. Segment 8. Becoming a better friend yourself. But Rule 3 isn't only about choosing better friends. It's about becoming one. Peterson teaches that when you orient your life toward truth, discipline, responsibility, you attract others on the same path. If you are petty, weak, deceitful, you will draw people who match that frequency. So ask, would the kind of person I want to be friends with want to be friends with me? Clean your room. Speak honestly. Show courage. And those who seek the same will find you. Segment 9. Walking away without guilt. Leaving behind toxic relationships is not cruelty. It is maturity. You are not judging others when you walk away. You are choosing to respect the direction of your own life. Sometimes love means distance. Sometimes kindness means saying, I can't walk with you down this road anymore. Not with anger, not with drama, but with clarity and peace. Your future will be shaped by the voices around you. So choose them wisely. Choose people who push you to grow, who believe in your highest self, even when you don't, who speak truth in love, who challenge you to be more, not less. Rule 4. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. Every day, we open the window to the world and see people doing better than us. Smarter, faster, richer, happier. They seem to have it all: beauty, confidence, purpose, momentum. And no matter how far we've come, there's always someone ahead. In a world shaped by constant visibility, social media, competition, comparison, it's easy to feel like you're falling behind, like you're late to life, like everyone else is living while you're just trying to survive. But Jordan Peterson gives us a powerful antidote in Rule 4. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. This is more than a motivational quote. It's a radical reorientation of how we judge value, progress, and identity. Because when you stop measuring yourself against the impossible perfection of others, and instead begin competing with your own past, you reclaim something vital, your own story. Segment 1. The trap of external comparison. We all compare. It's built into the way we think. From childhood, we notice who's stronger, who's prettier, who's praised. But comparison becomes poison when it's disconnected from context. You see someone's success, but not their sacrifices. You see their highlight, but not their struggle. You see their now, but not their yesterday. Peterson reminds us, you're not them. You were never meant to be. Your life is unfolding in its own time, in its own terrain. And comparing your climb to someone else's mountaintop will only fill you with despair. Segment 2. The unfairness of a game. Life is not a level playing field. Some are born into wealth, others into trauma. Some have supportive parents, good genes, natural discipline. Others have to fight just to survive. Peterson doesn't sugarcoat this. He acknowledges the brutal truth. Life is unfair. But he offers a way forward, not by resenting the world, but by choosing a fair fight. The person you were yesterday. That's the only comparison that makes sense. It's honest. It's measurable. It's yours. Segment 3. The power of incremental progress. You don't need to become a millionaire, an influencer, or a genius overnight. You just need to be a little better than you were yesterday. Did you wake up earlier? Did you tell the truth instead of lying? Did you avoid one bad habit? Did you finish what you started? These aren't small victories. They're the only kind of real victories. Because big transformations are built on 1,000 invisible choices, made one day at a time. Compare yourself to yourself, and you will see that you're not stuck. You're becoming. Segment 4. Setting personal standards. Peterson writes, you have some sense of how you should be. You wouldn't be so uncomfortable if you didn't. That discomfort you feel when you waste time, that shame after a lie, that guilt after giving in to weakness, that's not random. That's your conscience reminding you who you're capable of becoming. So set your standards, but set them for you. Not based on someone else's path, but on your own potential. Ask, what can I do today that would make tomorrow slightly easier? What habit, what thought, what action would push me forward, even slightly? That is your real competition. Segment 5. The tyranny of perfection. One of the most damaging lies we believe is that if we can't be the best, it's not worth trying. Perfection is a prison. It tells you to wait until everything is aligned, until you feel ready, until you have talent, support, energy, clarity. But that day never comes. And in the meantime, you sit, you stagnate, you rot. Peterson offers a better way. Forget perfection. Aim at better. Not perfect posture, but better posture. Not a perfect routine, but a better one than yesterday. If you move forward 1 inch each day, in a year, you've moved miles. Segment 6. How to measure yourself honestly. To compare yourself to your past, you must first observe yourself honestly. Where do you waste time? Where do you lie? Where are you weak? Where are you avoiding? What scares you? Peterson encourages brutal self-reflection, not to shame, but to clarify. Because only when you see your flaws clearly can you track your growth. This requires courage. It's easier to criticize others, easier to compare and complain. But transformation begins with a mirror, and that mirror does not lie unless you lie to it. Segment 7. Create your own metrics of success. In a society that tells you success is money, fame, attention, Peterson says no. Success is alignment. Living in harmony with your highest values. Doing what you said you would do. Becoming someone you admire. Quietly, persistently, faithfully. You don't need applause. You need integrity. So ask yourself, what would the better version of me do today? How can I act now in a way that my future self will thank me for? That's your metric. Segment 8. Progress in the midst of chaos. Life will not wait until you are ready. The bills, the grief, the fears, they will not pause. But even in the middle of chaos, progress is possible. You can organize one drawer in a messy house. You can speak one truth in a dishonest life. You can take one step forward, even if you're limping. Peterson teaches that small order resists great disorder, and that if you can bring just a little light into your corner of the world, the darkness begins to shrink. Segment 9. The reward of self-respect. When you compare yourself to yourself and commit to daily improvement, something changes. Not just externally, but within. You begin to trust yourself. You begin to respect yourself. Not because you're perfect, but because you're honest. And this self-respect becomes your shield against envy. You no longer need to tear others down. You're too focused on your own climb. That's the quiet power of Rule 4. You trade resentment for responsibility, comparison for clarity, noise for progress. Look back. Are you the same person you were a year ago? Are you stronger, wiser, calmer, more disciplined? If not, you know where to look. Not at others, but at yourself. So start today, not with judgment, but with attention. Not with pressure, but with commitment. You don't have to win against the world. You only need to lose to who you were yesterday. And if you keep losing that race, you just might find yourself becoming the person you were always meant to be. In a world that's increasingly confused about authority, boundaries, and parenting, one truth still stands tall. If we fail to discipline and guide our children, we don't just set them up for failure. We set the whole society up for collapse. This is Rule 5 of Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. Do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. It sounds simple, But behind these words lies a profound and uncomfortable truth about human nature, parental responsibility, and the deep psychology of love, discipline, and resentment. Welcome back to the Tunnel of Sane, where we dive deeper into the wisdom that many avoid, because truth, especially about parenting, is rarely gentle. If you're new here, consider subscribing now to never miss a video that dares to ask the real questions and search for deeper answers. Let's begin. Section 1. Why this rule exists. Peterson doesn't begin this rule with a lecture. He begins it with a warning about resentment. Not from children to parents, but from parents to their own children. When a child behaves badly, with aggression, dishonesty, or disrespect, and the parent does nothing, resentment starts to grow like mold in a forgotten room. Peterson reminds us, no one likes an undisciplined child, not even their own parents. Children are not born knowing how to act in society. They are born wild, full of instinct, emotion, and chaos. And the job of a parent, a teacher, and a culture is to tame that chaos without crushing the spirit. But when parents avoid correcting their children, out of fear, guilt, or laziness, the child's behavior spirals. The result? A child that the world doesn't like, and neither do their parents. Section 3. The grocery store breakdown. A man once stood in a grocery store, watching a young boy scream at his mother. She begged, pleaded, bribed him with candy. The boy hit her, cursed at her, and she gave in. What did that boy learn? He learned that power lies in tantrums, that his mother is not a guide, but a servant to his emotional storms. And the onlookers? They didn't admire the child. They pitied the mother. She had lost control, and with it, the child lost his guide. Peterson says, if you fail to correct a child, the world will correct them later. And that correction will be far more brutal, far less forgiving. Section 4. The importance of being liked. Yes, children want to be loved, but they also desperately want to be liked. Being liked by others teaches a child social reciprocity, how to share, listen, cooperate, and regulate their own impulses. If a child grows into someone that others consistently avoid, teachers, peers, neighbors, they grow up lonely, misunderstood. They fall into the traps of bitterness, rejection, and eventually rebellion. Peterson doesn't say you need to control your child like a tyrant. He says, shape them, guide them, and make sure they grow into someone you and others can delight in. Section 5. Tyranny versus guidance. But beware, discipline is not about domination. Parents who punish in anger, who lash out without explanation, who hit or scream, are not guiding. They're traumatizing. Peterson is clear. Children should understand why a rule exists. They should know the reason behind the no. Without understanding, rules feel like cages. With understanding, rules become ladders. Use the least amount of force necessary to correct behavior. Use your presence, your tone, your structure, and only when necessary, impose consequences clearly, calmly, consistently. Section 6. Raising civilized beings. The goal is not obedience. The goal is socialization. To raise a child is to prepare them to function in the world, to thrive in relationships, to respect others, to contribute meaningfully, to delay gratification, to be strong, kind, resilient. You're not just raising a child. You are raising the adult they will become. That means hard decisions now, for a better future later. Section 7. The role of two parents. Peterson often highlights the balance between mothers and fathers. Mothers naturally lean toward mercy. Fathers often lean toward rules. When both are present and respectful of each other's roles, the child receives structured love, a home where affection and correction dance in harmony. But when one parent dominates or disappears, imbalance leads to confusion. The child either becomes fearful of boundaries or unaware they even exist. Children thrive when two wise voices are united. And when only one is present, that voice must be stronger, more deliberate, more self-aware. Section 8. Training future adults. Every no you say today shapes the man or woman of tomorrow. The child who learns to sit at the dinner table without chaos, to listen when spoken to apologize when wrong, becomes the adult who holds a job, maintains friendships, raises a family. It begins with the small things, the daily corrections, the thank yous, the consequences for lying, the bedtime routines, the explanations for right and wrong. Consistency is the soil. Love is the water. Discipline is the sun. Ask yourself, what kind of adult do I want this child to become? Kind? Honest? Brave? Then start guiding them toward that now. If your child does something that makes you dislike them, do not ignore it. Do not pretend it's harmless. Do not tell yourself they'll grow out of it, because maybe they won't. And by then, the world will not be patient. Raise your children in such a way that not only do you love them. Rule 6. Set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. Voiceover script. Before you rage against the world, ask yourself, have you cleaned your room? It sounds simple, almost too simple. But in Rule 6, Jordan Peterson makes a powerful case. If you haven't put your own house in order, what makes you think you're ready to fix the world? And that's where we begin. Section 1. A world on fire. We live in a world that's chaotic, unfair, often brutal. Wars rage, corruption thrives, people suffer. It's tempting, irresistible even to point the finger outward, to blame the system, society, governments, the elites, the poor, the rich, the ignorant, the educated. But Peterson interrupts that reflex with a cold, hard truth. Perhaps it is not the world that must first be fixed, perhaps it is you. History is full of those who blame the world without ever confronting their own darkness. Mass murderers, terrorists, tyrants. But also everyday people who live bitter lives, always pointing outward, never inward. Before we declare war on existence, Peterson urges us to look closer to home. Section 2. The psychology of blame. There's a hidden danger in blaming the world for your suffering. It feels good, it relieves you of responsibility, but also makes you weak. You become a victim of forces beyond your control. You surrender your agency. Peterson draws from the darkest chapters of human history. The Columbine shooters, the writings of serial killers, even the philosophical roots of totalitarian ideologies. What they all share is a bitter narrative. The world is cruel, so I have the right to destroy. But if you live that way, your pain doesn't get smaller, it gets worse. Because what you avoid will return, and what you refuse to confront inside yourself will one day confront you from the outside. Section 3. Start with what you can fix. Set your house in perfect order. It begins with something as small as your room. Yes, your literal, physical room. Why? Because it's a reflection of your mind, your discipline, your respect for your own space. Can't keep your room clean? Then what makes you think you can clean up society? That's not mockery, it's humility. It's about learning to take responsibility where you do have power. And as you master that power, your influence grows. You stop being a bystander. You become someone whose life makes the world a better place. Not through complaint, but through example. Section 4. The quiet revolution. Peterson's rule is not about retreating from the world. It's about starting with the foundation. When you put your house in order, you eliminate excuses. You build strength. You become trustworthy, not only in your own eyes, but in the eyes of others. This is the quiet revolution. Change that begins from within. Your habits, your relationships, your words, your integrity. Fix those, and you're no longer just shouting at the world. You're building a different one. Section 5. The meaning hidden in suffering. Many people face suffering they never asked for. Trauma, poverty, illness. Peterson acknowledges this. But instead of justifying bitterness, he proposes something radical. In suffering, you may find the seeds of your redemption. When you endure hardship with grace, when you choose order over chaos, when you carry your burden instead of projecting it, you discover something powerful, meaning. That's how people survive even the worst horrors of life. Not by escaping pain, but by facing it and transforming it. Section 6. Begin today. Ask yourself, what am I doing that I know is wrong? What habits are poisoning my life slowly, silently? What responsibilities am I avoiding? What lies am I telling? What resentments am I feeding? Start there. Not all at once. Not perfectly, but honestly. Pick up one thing. Clean your desk. Apologize to someone. Take a small risk for the sake of truth. Then another, and another. Soon, you will no longer be the victim of your life's chaos. You'll be its architect. Section 7. The Tragedy of Unrealized Potential. Peterson reminds us that the greatest tragedy isn't just what's wrong with the world. It's what's missing from it. Missing because you never brought it. All your ideas, your courage, your potential, buried beneath excuses, lost in the fog of blame. But imagine if you did the opposite. If you took control. If you lived like your actions mattered. Like your life was a statement. The world may still be imperfect, but you wouldn't be adding to its chaos. You'd be subtracting from it. Healing it. One room at a time. One action at a time. Section 8. Final reflection. So before you criticize the world, clean your room. Because when your house is in order, your words carry weight. Your actions gain clarity. And your life becomes a beacon in a world that's desperate for direction. You don't need to start with revolutions. You need to start with yourself. And in doing so, you might just change everything. Rule 7. Pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. In a world obsessed with shortcuts, quick rewards, and instant pleasure, one idea dares to stand against the tide. Pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. This is Rule 7 of Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life, and perhaps the most challenging. Because to pursue what is meaningful is to suffer, to delay gratification, to sacrifice today for a better tomorrow. But it is also the path to truth, to strength, to purpose. In this video, we journey into the heart of this powerful idea. We explore ancient stories, modern struggles, psychological truths, and the spiritual core of what it means to live a meaningful life. This is Tunnel of Sane. Stay with us. And if you haven't yet, subscribe. Let's walk the long road together. Section 1. The Temptation of Expedience. Peterson opens this chapter with a stark contrast. Meaning versus expedience. Expedience is doing what works right now. What gives you a result without thinking about the long-term cost? It's lying to avoid punishment. Cheating to win faster. Numbing your pain instead of confronting its cause. It's the path of least resistance. But it's also the path of slow corrosion. Of your soul, your relationships, and your future. We all do it. We all take the shortcut. The cigarette. The angry outburst. The scroll through our phones when we should be working. Expedience is easy, but it extracts a silent price. Peterson argues that this mindset, while convenient, is ultimately nihilistic. It assumes that nothing really matters, so you might as well grab what you can before it all falls apart. But here's the danger. The more we rely on expedience, the more we hollow ourselves out. And in time, we forget what real value even looks like. Section 2. Meaning as the antidote to chaos. So what is meaning? To Peterson, meaning is not just a feeling. It is the experience of aligning yourself with what is right, even when it hurts. It's the process of voluntarily taking on the burden of being. And meaning often emerges in the presence of responsibility, of sacrifice. Peterson draws from ancient wisdom, especially the Judeo-Christian tradition, to explain how humans have always grappled with suffering. Life is hard, full of tragedy, pain, and betrayal. But meaning is the answer to that suffering. Not comfort, not ease, not pleasure. Meaning. The stories of the Bible, especially in Genesis, are not just religious texts. They are psychological blueprints. Take the story of Cain and Abel. Cain does not sacrifice properly. He offers something half-hearted, hoping to get the reward without giving up anything of real value. When God rejects him, he becomes enraged, not at himself, but at his brother. Instead of transforming his life, he destroys someone else's. Expedience turns to resentment. Resentment turns to evil. And evil justifies itself. Section 3. The Psychology of Sacrifice. Why does sacrifice matter? Because to sacrifice is to recognize the future exists and that it matters more than the present. A child learns this when they give up time to study, for an exam. An adult lives it when they work for their family. A leader embodies it when they take on the burden of responsibility instead of blaming others. Peterson frames this in evolutionary terms. Those who could sacrifice the present for the future survived and thrived. Section 3. Meaning is found in responsibility. Peterson doesn't sugarcoat this. He insists you must choose responsibility, not because someone forces you, but because you realize deep down that your soul craves it. You might think freedom is doing whatever you want, but true freedom arises from discipline, from structure, from meaning. Responsibility is the structure that gives life depth. The parent who nurtures, the friend who listens, the worker who builds, the leader who serves. You don't find yourself by looking inward and seeking pleasure. You find yourself by taking on the heaviest burden you can carry and walking forward. That's how you aim at the highest good. That's how you move from chaos into order. Section 4. A warning to the cynical mind. Peterson also offers a stark warning to those who slip into nihilism. The cynical soul says, nothing matters. Why try? Why care? Life is meaningless. But behind that statement is often pain, unresolved, unspoken, and sometimes a refusal to grow. Cynicism is easy. Meaning is hard. It demands transformation. If you believe nothing matters, you'll act like nothing matters. And soon, your life will reflect that belief. But if you dare to believe that something matters, even one thing, and pursue it with all your being, meaning will rise from the ashes of despair. Section 5. The courage to aim higher. To pursue what is meaningful is to aim higher, morally, spiritually, and practically. It's to choose truth over lies, virtue over vice, strength over passivity. It's to look your pain in the eye and say, I see you, but you will not define me. It's to strive, not for happiness, but for purpose, not for comfort, but for integrity. And it's to understand, with terrifying clarity, that what you do matters, not just to you, but to the world. Section 6. Meaning transforms chaos. When you walk the path of meaning, chaos doesn't vanish, but it becomes manageable. Peterson says, meaning is the antidote to suffering, and not because it eliminates it, but because it gives it context. It makes it bearable, noble even. When you choose what is meaningful, you stand straighter, speak clearer, think deeper. You become dangerous in the best sense, because a person living with meaning can no longer be manipulated, no longer lost in the fog. They are a light, not only to themselves, but to others. Section 7. Real-life application. What can you do today? So how do you live this? Start small. Clean your room. Tell the truth. Take care of your family. Make peace with someone you've hurt. And then expand outward. Find the deepest, most valuable thing you can aim at and go after it. Slowly, carefully, relentlessly. Ask yourself daily, what can I do today that is meaningful, not merely easy? And then do it. In a world that constantly whispers, take the shortcut, this rule roars. No, choose the path that leads to meaning. Because in the end, your life is not defined by how much pleasure you've had, but by how much meaning you've embraced. And meaning is not found. It's built, choice by choice, sacrifice by sacrifice. So stand up straight, pick up the burden, face the chaos, and walk toward the light. Rule 8. Tell the truth, or at least don't lie. There is a war raging in silence, a war not fought with weapons or armies, but with words and the absence of them. A war inside you. Every time you speak, you face a choice. Will you tell the truth, or will you lie? In Rule 8, Jordan Peterson urges us to take a radical stance, not merely to avoid deception, but to actively embrace truth. Or, at the very least, stop lying. This isn't just a moral preference. It's a lifeline. And in a world soaked in illusion, this might be the most revolutionary thing you can do. Section 1. The lie begins small. It starts with something small. A fake smile. A half-truth. An excuse you don't even believe. But one lie leads to another. And soon, you're no longer living your life. You're performing someone else's script. Peterson warns, Every lie we tell warps our reality. It fractures our soul. It poisons our relationships. It builds a prison around us. Invisible, but inescapable. You lie to protect others, but betray yourself. You lie to avoid pain, and sow deeper suffering. You lie to get ahead, and end up lost. Section 2. The nature of truth. What is truth? It's not just a collection of facts or cold logic. Truth is alignment between your words, your thoughts, your values, and your actions. Truth is what stabilizes your being. It's the foundation on which a meaningful life is built. It's not always comfortable. In fact, it rarely is. But it's real. And what's real will always outlast the lie. Peterson says, when you speak the truth, even if your voice trembles, you're laying down the structure of a better world. Brick by brick, word by word. Section 3. The personal cost of lying. But the real danger of lying is what it does to you. You become fragmented. You no longer know what you believe. You lose your sense of direction. You become a puppet pulled by the strings of convenience and fear. Section 3. The spirit of deceit. There's something insidious about deceit. It pretends to protect you. It offers temporary comfort. But underneath, it's a thief. It steals your clarity, your peace, and eventually, your identity. Peterson reflects on the totalitarian regimes of the 20th century, how entire societies became prisoners of lies. People repeated what they didn't believe out of fear, and soon the truth vanished. A culture of deceit gave rise to terror. But this pattern begins at the individual level. The smallest lie told to avoid conflict becomes a habit. That habit becomes a philosophy. Say what they want to hear, and before long, you no longer know what you think or believe. Truth then is resistance. It's rebellion against the decay of self. It's the first and most radical step toward freedom. Section 4. Telling the truth in daily life. What does it mean to tell the truth in ordinary life? It means saying, I don't know when you don't. It means owning up to mistakes. It means expressing how you feel, not just what others want to hear. It's not easy. Speaking the truth might cost you relationships, jobs, or comfort. But what it gives in return is far greater: coherence, dignity, and a sense of being truly alive. Even more powerful is the commitment to not lie. Sometimes, you may not know the full truth. You might be uncertain, confused, or afraid. But in those moments, you can still refuse to say what you know is false. That refusal alone is transformative. It makes you a different kind of person, one who cannot be manipulated, one who cannot be bought, one who is deeply, fearlessly, and authentically real. Section 5. The path to meaning. Peterson writes that truth is the foundation of meaning. When you tell the truth, you walk a path that might be painful, but it is also rich with purpose. Lying may offer the illusion of control, but it is truth that builds strength. The strength to face what's hard, to become who you are, to endure suffering without becoming bitter or broken. Meaning arises when your words match your beliefs, when your actions match your words, and when your heart matches your life. That's the alignment truth offers. And it begins with one simple, radical act: refusing to lie. Closing reflection. You don't have to become a prophet overnight. You don't need to know the whole truth about the universe. But you can begin with this. Speak the truth that you do know. Or, at the very least, stop speaking what you know to be false. That single decision, held with courage and clarity, can change everything. Because when you speak the truth, you stand tall. You walk forward. And the world begins to shape itself around something more solid, more honest, more real. Truth is not easy, but is the only thing strong enough to carry you through the chaos. Rule 9. Assume that the person you are listening to might know something you don't. We live in a world obsessed with talking, with opinions, with making noise. Everyone wants to be heard, but few are willing to truly listen. Rule 9 is a quiet revolution, a call to humility in a world of ego. It asks you to consider, just for a moment, that you might not know everything, and that the person in front of you might carry a truth that could change your life. Jordan Peterson doesn't just want you to be polite. He wants you to listen like your life depends on it. Because in many ways, it does. Before we open this door to deeper understanding, subscribe to Tunnel of Sane, where every video is designed to challenge your thinking and sharpen your mind. Let's get into it. Section 1. The power of humble listening. Why listen? Not just to reply, not just to wait for your turn to speak, but to learn, to grow, to genuinely hear the thoughts of another human being and be changed by them. Peterson suggests that when you listen properly, the person speaking becomes smarter, sometimes even wiser than they knew themselves to be. Because true listening is a mirror. It reflects back not just what someone says, but who they are becoming. To listen humbly is to acknowledge your limitations. That no matter how intelligent or experienced you are, there's always more to see, more to understand. That the person across from you might carry a key to a door you didn't even know was locked inside you. Section 2. The cost of assumption. When you assume you know everything, you stop growing. You trap yourself in a prison of your own perspective, and the world, in all its complexity and depth, becomes small. People don't just want to be heard. They need to be heard. When you truly listen, you offer more than attention. You offer dignity. You become a witness to someone else's truth, their pain, their experience. And in return, something remarkable happens. You begin to see the world through a different lens. You absorb insights, wisdom, and nuance you could never have discovered alone. Listening, then, is not a passive act. It's an act of courage. It's the willingness to step outside yourself and say, maybe I don't have it all figured out. Maybe there's more to learn. Section 3. Conversation as a form of thinking. Peterson sees conversation as a collaborative process. It's not just two people exchanging opinions. It's two minds working together to uncover truth. Sometimes we speak to understand our own thoughts. We talk through confusion. We discover what we believe in the act of expression. But that process only works if someone is truly listening. When you listen, you help the other person think. You help them refine their ideas. You challenge them, not with argument, but with your presence, with your curiosity, with your openness. And in doing so, you sharpen your own mind. You expand your understanding. The conversation becomes a crucible, and both of you come out changed. Section 4. The dangers of intellectual arrogance. There's a hidden danger in being smart, educated, or accomplished, the illusion of certainty. When you've read many books, formed many opinions, and achieved some level of mastery, it's easy to believe you already know what someone is going to say. Peterson warns against this intellectual arrogance, because the moment you stop listening, you stop learning. Wisdom isn't just about collecting knowledge. It's about knowing what you don't know. It's about staying open to surprise, to contradiction, to the possibility that someone entirely different from you has seen a truth you've missed. Even a child can teach you something. Even your enemy can reveal something valuable if you're willing to hear it. Section 5. Listening as a spiritual practice. Truly listening isn't easy. It requires discipline, patience, the ability to quiet your inner monologue and set aside your desire to be right. But when you do, something powerful happens. You connect, not just intellectually, but human to human. In a noisy, distracted world, to listen deeply is a radical act. It's a kind of presence, a sacred offering. You tell the other person, you matter. Your thoughts matter. I'm here. And in that space, healing can happen. Clarity can emerge. Ideas can be born. Peterson's advice isn't just psychological, it's almost spiritual. Assume the other person might know something you don't. And then listen, not to win, not to reply, but to understand. Because understanding is the beginning of wisdom. When was the last time you truly listened? Not with your ears, but with your whole being. This rule invites you to trade certainty for curiosity, to stop trying to prove yourself and start trying to see. Everyone you meet knows something you don't. Every conversation is a door, and behind that door is a chance to become wiser, deeper, more human. So next time you sit with someone, pause, be still, assume they might hold a piece of the truth, and then listen like your life depends on it. Rule 10. Be precise in your speech. Words shape reality. They build bridges or burn them. They carve out order or invite chaos. In Rule 10, Jordan Peterson delivers a powerful message. If you want to bring clarity to your life, start by being precise with your speech. It sounds simple, but behind this rule lies a deep truth, one that touches psychology, philosophy, and the very structure of being itself. When your words are vague, your problems grow teeth. But when you name the thing clearly, you gain power over it. This is Tunnel of Sane, and if you're drawn to truth, clarity, and transformation, subscribe now. Let's dig into the anatomy of precise speech and why it might just save your life. Section 1. The dangers of vagueness. Imagine waking up in a house with a strange smell. You don't know where it's coming from, but you sense something is wrong. Instead of finding the source, you ignore it. The odor spreads. Weeks pass, and rot settles in. By the time you investigate, the damage is irreversible. That's how problems grow in silence. Peterson argues that imprecision is a mask. When you avoid naming the problem, be it a failing relationship, an inner conflict, or a painful truth, it festers. Ambiguity allows monsters to multiply. The unnamed becomes the unmanageable. You say something's off, but you won't say what. You feel anxious, but you won't explore why. You argue with someone, but you don't specify what hurt you. So nothing changes. The chaos spreads. Section 2. Speech as a tool of order. Words are tools, but more than that, they're tools of creation. With words, you define your world. You give form to your experience. You distinguish right from wrong, love from resentment, fear from clarity. When you speak precisely, you draw a line in the sand. You say, this is the problem. This is what I want. This is what I feel. This is what needs to happen. And suddenly the fog lifts. Action becomes possible. Peterson links this to the biblical idea of logos, speech as the fundamental creative force. In the beginning, God spoke, and order emerged from chaos. Likewise, when you speak with precision, you shape the chaos of your inner and outer world into something structured, real, and manageable. Section 3. How precision heals relationships. So many relationships fall apart, not because of cruelty, but because of vagueness. Because one person felt hurt and didn't say why. Because frustration built up in silence. Because no one spoke clearly, so the misunderstandings multiplied. Peterson urges us to be honest and specific, especially with those we love. Don't say, you never listen. Say, when I told you about my day and you looked at your phone, I felt ignored. That's precision. That's real. That opens the door to healing. Precision also means asking clear questions. What do I want? What do they want? Where exactly are we misaligned? Vague accusations only breed resentment, but clear speech invites resolution. Section 4. Clarity in the face of chaos. When life falls apart, people often don't know where to start. It feels like everything is wrong. But Peterson insists, don't globalize the problem. Don't say, my life is a mess. Instead, say, I haven't been sleeping. I feel disconnected from my partner. I'm avoiding an important decision. See the difference? One keeps you trapped in a storm. The other gives you something to act on. This is what precision does. It cuts chaos into pieces small enough to manage. It turns the overwhelming into the actionable. It helps you confront the dragon in the cave instead of running from shadows in every direction. Section 5. The moral responsibility of speech. Peterson doesn't view speech as neutral. He believes it's a moral act. When you speak precisely, you take responsibility for yourself, for your relationships, for your reality. Imprecise language, on the other hand, allows evil to flourish. Tyrannies, for example, often begin with vague slogans, noble-sounding but empty. Words are twisted to hide intentions, to obscure accountability. That's how manipulation thrives. So if you want to protect yourself and the world, be precise in your speech. Name the problem. Name the truth. Don't hide behind soft phrases and polite lies. Say what you mean. Mean what you say. The world is full of fog. We feel lost, anxious, overwhelmed. But often, the first step forward isn't action. It's articulation. What's really wrong? What are you really afraid of? What do you really need to say? Don't underestimate the power of a well-formed sentence. It might be the blade that cuts through your confusion. It might be the light that reveals your next step. So speak, not just loudly, but clearly. Name the dragon. Name the desire. Name the wound. And watch as the chaos begins to retreat. Rule 11. Do not bother children when they are skateboarding. Voiceover script. In the heart of every city, in back alleys and suburban driveways, there are children doing something dangerous, something that seems reckless, even chaotic. They're skateboarding, launching themselves off staircases, risking bruises, scrapes, and broken bones. And yet, they are not simply playing. They are learning. In Rule 11, Jordan Peterson confronts a truth that modern society often forgets. If you remove all danger, you remove the possibility of growth. Peterson begins with a scene many of us recognize: security guards telling skateboarders to stop, or city officials installing metal brackets to prevent tricks. But behind this seemingly minor battle lies a profound philosophical and psychological insight. Children, especially boys, are drawn to risk, not because they are reckless by nature, but because risk is a crucible. It teaches courage. It builds competence. It's a domain where personal responsibility becomes visceral and real. When you try to land a trick on a skateboard, there's no one to blame but yourself. Success or failure is immediate, concrete, and entirely yours. Peterson argues that our modern attempts to shield children from all harm are not compassionate. They are oppressive. When you prevent kids from engaging in difficult or risky activities, you're not protecting them. You're robbing them of the opportunity to grow stronger. This rule isn't really about skateboarding. It's about freedom, autonomy, the ability to test oneself against the world. It's about the sacred space of unsupervised play, where children form their identities without adult interference. The danger in overprotection is not just coddled youth. It's resentful, unprepared adults. Look around. In universities, in workplaces, in politics, we see the rise of a culture that confuses harm with discomfort and disagreement with violence. Peterson contends that this culture is anti-resilience. It denies the need for discomfort, conflict, and trial, all essential ingredients for growth. He recalls Nietzsche's famous line, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." But Peterson adds another layer. We also need a how that challenges us enough to forge a why. When we remove the skateboards, we remove the stakes. When we silence challenge, we prevent strength. Peterson isn't romanticizing danger. He acknowledges that risk can lead to harm. But the alternative, a sanitized, padded, infantilized world, leads to something worse: weakness. And weak people are not safe. They are easily manipulated, easily broken, easily enraged. There's a deeper philosophical current running through this rule: the idea that competence is born through voluntary exposure to chaos. In religious myth, it's the hero who voluntarily enters the dragon's lair. In real life, it's the child who falls, bleeds, gets up, and tries again. And here lies a paradox. Safety is found not in the absence of danger, but in the mastery of it. Peterson challenges the modern narrative that claims safety is a right. He flips the script. Safety is a reward for those who develop strength, character, and the ability to confront what is frightening. Think about your own life. The times you grew were rarely easy. Maybe it was failure, rejection, a difficult job, a painful truth. That's where the real transformation happened. Not in the calm, but in the storm. And this is the gift we must give the next generation. Not comfort, but courage. Not protection, but preparation. Peterson warns that when we try to create a utopia, an overly ordered society with no room for rebellion, we end up breeding resentment, especially among young men. The masculine spirit, he argues, needs something to push against. Suppress it too harshly, and it either collapses into passivity or explodes in chaos. Rule 12. Pet a cat when you encounter one on the street. Life is suffering. This is the truth Jordan Peterson begins with, not to depress us, but to awaken us. Rule 12 is not just about cats. It's about how to live when the storm refuses to pass. This rule arrives like a whisper at the end of a long sermon. After chapters of responsibility, confrontation, and discipline, here, finally, is a moment of softness, of stillness, a quiet, almost sacred permission to simply pause. Pet a cat when you encounter one on the street. What does that mean? Peterson tells the story of his daughter Michaela, who suffered from a rare and painful disease throughout her childhood. The kind of suffering that doesn't just weigh down the body, it tests the soul. Surgeries, inflammation, hospital visits, uncertainty, years of watching someone you love fight an invisible war. There are no words for that kind of pain. Only questions. How do you keep going when the future dissolves into shadows? How do you stay sane when control slips through your fingers? Peterson doesn't offer platitudes. Instead, he offers a profound and ancient wisdom. Pay attention to the small, fleeting moments of grace. A cat crosses your path. It stretches in the sun. It sits beside you on a bench and purrs. It doesn't care about your mortgage, your past, or your fears. For a few seconds, its presence is an invitation to return to the now, to feel something gentle in a world full of sharp edges. Pet a cat when you encounter one on the street. It means don't miss the beauty hidden inside the sorrow. This rule is not about escapism. It's about survival. It's about noticing that even on the darkest days, life still offers tiny islands of peace. A warm breeze, a smile, a kind word, a breath, a moment where the weight lifts, even if just for a heartbeat. When we lose someone we love, the pain is unbearable. But within that grief is something sacred, the knowledge that the time we had. Rule 12 reminds us that tragedy is the price of love, that the fragility of life is not a curse, but the very thing that makes it precious. When you love deeply, you risk suffering deeply. But to shield yourself from that pain is to also shield yourself from meaning. We are surrounded by chaos, illness, injustice, heartbreak, death. But we're also surrounded by miracles so quiet we forget to see them. The sunlight slanting through your window, the sound of laughter in the next room, a child sleeping peacefully, a moment of silence that holds the entire world. In those moments, there is stillness, and in stillness, healing. Peterson teaches that when everything feels overwhelming, we must narrow our focus. Don't try to carry the universe. Carry the moment. Take life one breath, one step, one small mercy at a time. If someone you love is dying, spend time with them. If you are exhausted by pain, sleep. If the chaos is too much, look at the cat. Because that's where the strength to endure is born. Not in grand declarations, but in quiet presence. Peterson's voice is not that of a motivational speaker here. It's the voice of someone who has walked through fire and come out scarred, but still human. It's the voice of a father who learned that sometimes the most heroic thing you can do is keep breathing. So pet a cat when you encounter one on the street, or smile at a stranger, or drink your coffee slowly. Let yourself feel this world, not just the wounds, but the wonders, because even in a life of suffering, there are still things worth holding on to, still things worth noticing, still things worth loving. Life is hard, that is true, but is also beautiful. And that is just as true. We are not here to avoid suffering, but to find meaning in spite of it, to stand in the storm and still see the stars, to pet the cat, even when your heart is breaking. We've come to the end of this journey through 12 Rules for Life by Dr. Jordan Peterson. But the real journey, the one that matters most, begins now with you. Because what you just explored is not just a list of rules. It's a call to order in a world that feels increasingly chaotic. It's a set of guiding principles for those who refuse to be consumed by meaninglessness. It's a torch passed from generations of thinkers, philosophers, and psychologists to help you navigate the dark forests of your own existence. You've heard the rules. Stand up straight. Tell the truth. Pursue what is meaningful. Treat yourself like someone you're responsible for helping. These are not abstract suggestions. They're truths carved out of suffering, tested through centuries of hardship and resilience. They are reminders that life is not a problem to be solved. but a responsibility to be embraced. So, ask yourself, have you changed? Even slightly? Maybe you sat a little straighter during this video. Maybe you remembered a truth you've been avoiding. Maybe you felt something deep inside you stirring. An old voice, quiet but persistent, saying, you were made for more. Because you were. Dr. Peterson's rules don't promise comfort. They demand responsibility. They don't hand you happiness. They offer you dignity. They don't tell you the world is fair. They remind you that even in its unfairness, you can rise above it and shape your own meaning within it. It's hard to hear this in an age of distractions, in a culture where outrage is currency and victimhood is identity. But that's exactly why these rules matter, because they cut through the noise and go straight to the soul. They ask, what are you doing with your time here? Not what others think you should do, not what makes you fit in, but what aligns with the highest version of yourself, the version that speaks softly in moments of solitude and regret, reminding you that you can still change. You can still grow. You can still make meaning. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to aim upward. That's what this book is about. That's what the Tunnel of Sane is about. And if that resonates with you, then you belong here. This channel is not just about summarizing great books. It's about facing hard truths. It's about finding meaning in madness. It's about helping you, the seeker, the struggler, the soul on the edge, find your path. So if you felt something while listening to this, don't let that spark die out. Subscribe, not because it helps the algorithm, but because it helps you stay on the path. Because the content here isn't designed to waste your time. It's built to challenge your mind, fuel your spirit, and arm you with tools to face life head-on. We have so many journeys ahead. Books that shake your foundations. Ideas that will make you uncomfortable, but also stronger. Wisdom that no one taught you in school. Truths that the world desperately needs, but is too distracted to hear. And this is just the beginning. There's a reason you found this video. And it's not by accident. Something in you is searching, yearning, fighting to stay awake in a culture that puts your soul to sleep. So don't stop now. Join us. Click that subscribe button. Turn on notifications. And be part of a growing tribe of thinkers, readers, and questioners who are tired of the shallow and ready for the real. If you've been walking through life feeling lost, this is your sign to stop wandering. If you've been pretending to be someone you're not, this is your chance to be honest. And if you've been playing small, afraid of your own potential, this is your moment to rise. Dr. Jordan Peterson gave us 12 rules. But the truth is, it's not about the number of rules. It's about the courage to live even one of them. One rule, truly lived, can change a world. So what will it be? Will you return to distraction? Or will you take what you've learned and make it real? The choice is yours. But remember, every time you choose meaning over ease, responsibility over victimhood, truth over comfort, you grow. And the world, though it may not notice, becomes just a little brighter because of it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for thinking. Thank you for choosing the Tunnel of Sane. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, stand up straight with your shoulders back and keep walking forward.